Update: my 31M girlfriend, 29F, moved into my apartment without asking. Now I'm questioning our entire relationship. Hey Reddit, I don't usually post, but I need some advice on something that's been bothering me for a while. I've been dating my girlfriend, Emily, 29F, for almost 2 years. We've had a good relationship overall, but lately things have been feeling off. It all revolves around her moving into my apartment, which, by the way, she never really asked to do. To give you some context, we lived separately for most of our relationship. I have a decent-sized one-bedroom apartment, and she has her own place across town. But in the last 6 months, she started spending more and more time at my place. At first, it was a few nights a week. That seemed normal to me. Then, without really noticing, it turned into her staying over almost every night. At first, I didn't think too much about it. I enjoyed having her around, and my place is bigger, so it felt convenient. But then she started bringing more of her stuff over. First, it was just small things: an extra toothbrush, a change of clothes, a bit of makeup. But then, gradually, entire boxes of clothes, toiletries, and books started appearing in my apartment. And it wasn't just a few items. It felt like she was moving in little by little. I joked with her a few times about it, saying, "Hey, are you moving in?" She'd laugh it off and say she just liked having more options at my place. I didn't push it further because I didn't want to come across as a jerk. But after a while, I realized that it wasn't just small things anymore. Her stuff was starting to take over. My bathroom countertop was filled with her skincare products and hair tools. There were entire sections of my closet and drawers filled with her clothes. It reached a point where my space didn't feel like mine anymore. One day, I was getting ready for a work meeting and went to grab my favorite shirt, only to realize I couldn't find it anywhere. I searched through my closet, checked the laundry basket. Nothing. I asked Emily if she'd seen it, and she casually said, "Oh, I packed it away because you weren't wearing it." Packed it away? I hadn't asked her to do that. It was like she had taken over my space and started reorganizing my things without asking me. That was the first time I really felt uncomfortable. I told her it bothered me, but she brushed it off, saying she was just trying to help. I let it slide, but it left me feeling weird. I started noticing more things being rearranged in my apartment. Like my bookshelves filling up with her romance novels and cookbooks, my bathroom had more of her stuff than mine, and even my furniture had been slightly rearranged. Then came the day I walked in from work and realized she'd fully redecorated my apartment. She had added new throw pillows, a different rug, and even hung up framed photos of her friends and family on the walls. There was a new coffee table I didn't buy, and a few other items I had no clue about. That's when I lost it. I sat her down and said, "What's going on? Are you moving in? Because if you are, we need to talk about it." That's when she dropped the bombshell. She said she thought it was obvious she had moved in since she was staying here so often, and I hadn't said anything against it. My mind was blown. She never asked to move in, and we definitely never discussed it. She had just assumed that because she was around all the time, we were basically living together. I tried to explain to her that moving in is a big step, and we needed to have an actual conversation about it. But instead of understanding, she got defensive. She said that I was sending mixed signals by letting her stay over so much, and that I should have said something earlier if I wasn't okay with it. She seemed to think that because I hadn't objected to her staying, that was the same as giving her permission to take over my space. At that point, I didn't know what to think. I started feeling like a guest in my own apartment. I talked to one of my close friends about it, and he asked me a question that really hit home. "Do you even want to live with her?" And I realized I hadn't asked myself that. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't sure I was ready for that step, especially under these circumstances. I tried bringing it up with Emily again. I told her I wasn't opposed to the idea of living together eventually, but this wasn't how I imagined it happening. I said we needed to communicate better and figure things out before making such a big move. But she wasn't having it. She kept saying that we're in a serious relationship and that this was the natural progression. And here's the kicker. She basically gave me an ultimatum. She said that if I wasn't ready to live with her, she didn't see a future for us. It was either move in together or break up. Honestly, I didn't expect it to come to that, but in that moment, I knew I couldn't do it. I told her I wasn't ready. And if that was a deal breaker for her, then maybe we weren't on the same page about our relationship. She packed up some of her stuff and left that night. We haven't spoken much since. So now I'm sitting here wondering if I made the right decision. Part of me feels like I did. I wasn't ready for such a big step, especially not in the way it happened. But another part of me feels guilty, like maybe I should have seen this coming and talked to her sooner. I love her, but I didn't want to be forced into something I wasn't ready for. Am I an asshole for not being okay with her moving in like that? Should I have handled this differently? Any advice would be appreciated. Update. Thanks for all the advice, Reddit. After reflecting on everything, I think I made the right call. It wasn't just about moving in, it was about the way it happened. If she wasn't willing to have an open conversation about it, then maybe it wasn't meant to be. I'll keep you posted if anything changes, but for now, I'm just trying to move forward. Update. My girlfriend moved in without asking, and now we've broken up, but it got messy. Hey Reddit, I'm back with an update, and things have gotten way more complicated than I anticipated. I didn't expect so many people to weigh in, and your advice has been really helpful. If you caught my original post, you know that my girlfriend, Emily, 29F, moved into my apartment, 31M, without ever actually asking. Over time, she just brought more and more of her things over until it felt like she was living there full time. We never talked about it, and when I finally confronted her, it blew up into a huge argument. She gave me an ultimatum: either we live together officially, or we break up. Well, I chose the latter, but what followed was a lot messier than I thought. After the breakup, Emily left that night, but didn't take all of her things. I assumed it would give us both time to cool off and process everything. I thought she'd come back for the rest of her stuff in a day or two, and we'd both move on. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. For the first few days, we didn't really talk. I was fine with that because I needed some space, and I assumed she did too. But on the third day, I came home from work and noticed something strange. Half of her stuff was gone. She'd taken a lot of her personal items, clothes, makeup, and a few random things, but she left behind most of the bigger items she had brought into my apartment, like the furniture and some kitchen gadgets. At first, I was relieved, thinking she'd taken the hint and started moving her things out gradually. However, I quickly realized that something wasn't right. 2 days later, I came home again and found my apartment had been deep cleaned. I didn't hire anyone, and there was no way I had done it because, well, cleaning isn't exactly my strong suit. I checked my security camera, I have a basic setup, and sure enough, Emily had come by while I was at work. She not only cleaned my entire place, but also rearranged some of the furniture back to how she had it before the breakup. It felt invasive, to say the least. She had let herself in without telling me, cleaned, and subtly tried to reset the apartment like we were still together. I texted her, asking why she had done that, and she replied with, "I thought I'd help out since you've been so stressed lately." Here's the thing. I hadn't told her I was stressed. In fact, I had barely spoken to her since the breakup. It seemed like she was just pretending everything was fine, like nothing had changed. At that point, I knew we needed to talk face to face. I called her and asked if we could meet up to discuss what was going on. We arranged to meet at a cafe near my place. And when we sat down, she immediately started chatting as if we were still together. She talked about her day and asked how I'd been, completely ignoring the fact that we were supposed to be broken up. I finally had to interrupt her and say, "Emily, we need to talk about what's really going on. We broke up. You can't keep coming to my apartment like nothing happened." She looked at me like I was crazy and said, "We didn't really break up. We just had a disagreement. Couples fight all the time, but that doesn't mean it's over." I couldn't believe it. I had made it clear when we last spoke that I wasn't ready for her to move in, and that it was a serious issue for me. But she acted like the conversation never happened, as if she could just keep showing up and things would go back to normal. I told her, once again, that I had been serious about not being ready to live together, and that she couldn't just show up at my place without letting me know. But she hit me with something I didn't expect. "I thought if I showed you how great it would be for us to live together, you'd come around." It dawned on me that she was trying to manipulate the situation. She thought if she kept doing things around my apartment, cleaning, organizing, making it feel more like her space, I'd magically change my mind and ask her to move in for real. It felt like she was trying to force the outcome she wanted without actually considering how I felt. I tried to explain to her that moving in together should be a mutual decision, not something one person tries to push on the other. I told her that this wasn't going to work and that we needed to part ways for good. That's when she got defensive. She accused me of being afraid of commitment and claimed that I was throwing away something good because I was too scared to take the next step. I didn't want to escalate the argument, so I calmly reiterated that if this was how she saw things, then we were on completely different pages and that the breakup needed to stand. I asked her to come pick up the rest of her stuff as soon as possible so we could both move on. She stormed out of the cafe, and I thought that was the end of it. But I was wrong. About a week later, I got a call from the front desk of my building. Emily had shown up while I was at work and tried to get in, claiming she needed to pick up some of her things. Luckily, the concierge knew we had broken up. I had informed him after she first came by unannounced, so he didn't let her in. That's when I realized I had to take further steps to protect my space. I changed the locks and revoked her access to the building. It felt extreme, but I didn't know what else to do. I texted her afterward, letting her know that I had changed the locks and asking her again when she planned to come get the rest of her things. Her reply? "I'll come when I'm ready. Don't rush me." At this point, I realized she was intentionally dragging things out. It wasn't about her stuff anymore. It was about her trying to maintain some level of control over the situation. By leaving her things in my apartment, she still had a reason to be part of my life. It was clear she wasn't ready to let go, even though I had made my position as clear as possible. Now I'm stuck in this awkward limbo. Her things are still in my apartment, sitting in boxes, and I don't know whether to drop them off at her place or wait for her to come get them. Part of me just wants to end this and move on, but another part of me doesn't want to risk making the situation worse by taking drastic action. So, Reddit, that's where I'm at. Should I drop off her stuff and cut ties completely, or wait for her to pick it up herself? I'm worried she's never going to get the message and will keep finding ways to insert herself into my life. Any advice on how to navigate this would be appreciated. Thanks again for all the support. I hope this is the last update, but with how things have been going, who knows? Final update, my girlfriend moved in without asking. Now she won't leave, and it's escalating. Hey Reddit, I didn't think I'd be back again, but here I am. After my last update, I was hopeful that things were finally coming to an end, but unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. I thought I had made it clear to Emily that we were done and that she needed to collect her things. I wanted to move on with my life, but she's made that nearly impossible. Things have gone from uncomfortable to downright unsettling, and I'm not sure what my next step should be. After I changed the locks and informed her, I didn't hear from Emily for several days. I figured she had finally accepted that it was over and was giving me space. I'll admit, there was a small part of me that hoped this was the turning point, that she'd come to terms with the breakup and we could part ways peacefully. But deep down, I had a feeling that it wasn't going to be that easy. One evening, about a week after I had last spoken to her, I came home from work and found a note slipped under my door. It was from Emily. She wrote that she wasn't ready to let go and asked if we could talk, face to face, not through texts or calls. She said she missed me, that she regretted how things ended, and that she believed we could still work it out. At first, I wasn't sure what to do. Part of me felt bad for her, thinking maybe she was going through something and needed closure. But another part of me was frustrated. I had already made my position clear. We had broken up. I wasn't willing to rehash the whole thing just because she was struggling to move on. I didn't respond to her note. I thought it was best to keep my distance, to not get sucked back into a conversation that would just prolong the inevitable. But the next day, I noticed something strange. As I was leaving for work, I saw her car parked down the street from my building. She wasn't in it, but it was definitely hers. It creeped me out a little, but I figured maybe she was coming by to get her stuff. Still, I hadn't told her she could come over, and her car being there without a word from her made me uneasy. Later that day, I texted her, asking if she had come by to pick up her things. She replied, saying she hadn't been able to get into the building, but was still trying to figure out a time to come by. I let it go, assuming it was a coincidence, and hoped she'd make arrangements soon. That evening, I went out to meet a friend for drinks, trying to get my mind off the situation. When I got back to my building, I noticed her car again, still parked in the same spot. This time, she was sitting inside. I felt my stomach drop. It was late, and seeing her just sitting there freaked me out. I walked past her car quickly and went straight up to my apartment without saying anything. A few minutes later, I heard a knock at my door. It was Emily. She looked tired and upset, and she started asking me to let her in so we could talk. She wasn't yelling or anything, Her voice was calm, but there was this weird intensity to her, like she was desperate for something. I told her through the door that I didn't want to talk and that she needed to go home. She stayed for what felt like forever, knocking softly and saying she just wanted to talk. I didn't open the door. Eventually, she left, but the whole thing left me feeling rattled. Over the next few days, things got worse. Emily started showing up more frequently, waiting outside my building or texting me at random times, asking if we could meet. I tried to be firm but polite in my responses, telling her that I needed space and that we were done. She ignored every single boundary I set. At this point, I started to feel like I was being watched. Anytime I left my apartment, I half expected her to be there, and more often than not, she was. Then one night, something really strange happened. I was home late, working on a project, when I heard what sounded like someone trying to unlock my door. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but then I heard it again, the sound of keys fumbling in the lock. My heart started racing. I went to the door and looked through the peephole, and there she was, trying to unlock the door with a set of keys. It hit me then. She still had her old keys from before I changed the locks. I don't know what she was thinking, but I felt a surge of panic. I shouted through the door for her to stop and go home, telling her that I had changed the locks and she couldn't come in. She was quiet for a moment, then asked if I could just let her in to talk. I refused and told her this was getting out of hand. After a long silence, she finally left, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was really, really wrong. The next day, I went to the building management and explained what had been going on. They were concerned and suggested I file a police report if she kept showing up. I wasn't sure if I was ready to go that far, but I knew I couldn't keep living like this, constantly worried she'd be outside my apartment or trying to get back in. Things came to a head last weekend. I came home late after spending the day with friends, hoping some distance would give me clarity. When I got back, I found that Emily had left more notes at my door, several this time, along with a few of her things she had taken back from the apartment earlier. The notes were all over the place. Some were apologetic, saying she missed me, while others were angry, accusing me of not giving her a chance to explain. One even said she didn't believe I was serious about the breakup. That was my breaking point. I couldn't keep letting her manipulate the situation and invade my space. I contacted a lawyer to discuss a restraining order and reached out to a few close friends to let them know what was happening. I've even started looking for a new place, just to get away from the situation entirely. It's exhausting, Reddit. I never imagined it would get this bad, and now I feel like I'm trapped in this nightmare that just won't end. I still don't know how things got this far, but I can't ignore the signs anymore. This behavior isn't healthy, and I need to protect myself. Thanks for sticking with me through this. I'll be filing the restraining order soon, and I hope this will be the last time I have to update you all. I just want to put this whole chapter behind me and move forward with my life.